Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Now, many of y'all are obviously internationally trained allied health professionals, nurses, physiotherapists, OTs, radiographers, pharmacists, etc. And when you come into the UK, you might possibly think about integrating into the NHS, which is the National Health Service, or you might even find a job in the private sector. But whatever you do as an internationally trained medical professional, you will be facing some difficulties, some challenges that might be there in the first few months while you get integrated into the UK system. And in today's video, we will be discussing what are some of the key steps that you can take to ease this or to make this easier for you. So if you are interested in it, do not forget to watch this video all the way to the end. But for those of you who are new here, please remember that I have an Instagram account called Physiotherapy in UK, which I highly recommend you follow just so that you receive all of the daily updates that I will be releasing out. But also, if you haven't already checked out my website, now would be a good time to do so as well. And for those of you who are struggling with your HCPC applications, identifying how to write a good job application, or even are landing interviews but don't know what kind of questions will be asked and would like to know more about it, please do not forget to book a one-to-one session with me right now on my website. But diving right into today's content, let's just see what are the key steps for you, especially when you are an internationally trained medical professional coming into the UK. So, my first tip for any of y'all starting out in your first job in the NHS or in the private sector in the UK is don't be worried about asking for help. Ask for help if that's what you need. For example, I remember when I started in the NHS, all of the processes were very different. The system of note writing was different, the system for referrals, documentation, assessment reports, all of that was so different. And obviously, when you come from a different country, when you come from a different background, you may not be aware about all of these things, and that's completely fine. Please do not stress. It does not make you any less worthy of being in that post as compared to your colleague who has been working there for maybe, say, 6 months. Now, remember, obviously, if you have been offered the post, you are good enough. You have the clinical skills, you have the technical knowledge that you need. All you need to do is learn the process, maybe get better at understanding what is the sort of working pathways within the UK. And I would say this is exactly where you ask for help. Being an internationally trained healthcare professional, we also feel that maybe if we ask for help, our supervisors, our managers may think we're not good enough. And let me just correct you right there and say that's not true. They would rather you ask them questions than go ahead and do something wrong or silly. So trust me, no question is small, and ask for help as soon as you need it when you initially start off as a working professional in the UK. All right, the second most important tip that I want to share with all of you is try to stick to your working hours. Now, for example, I used to work in India, and I know that as an intern, if I ended up staying for longer hours or if I ended up working for an extra bit more, nobody would say anything. But that's not how it works in the UK. So, in the UK, they actually value your working hours because they believe that you need to have a good work life balance. So, now when I say that, for example, I work in the community, my role is maybe say from 9 to 5. I am expected to work only from 9 to 5. I am not given any additional points or favorable treatment if I come 1 hour early or if I leave 1 hour late. And also, what this does is it helps them sort of analyze what is happening. So they only give you caseloads, documentation related work, or maybe some additional work based on your working hours and based on the amount of workload you are able to take. Now, if you are staying up late, and trust me, if it is one occasional day or two occasional days in a month, that's absolutely fine. But if you notice that you're doing this consistently, you're either coming in early or you're leaving home late, then you need to flag this up. Now, for two reasons. Firstly, the reason can be that you are taking more time, you need the additional time or the additional sort of day to cope up with all of the sort of admin, logistics, management related work that has come along with your clinical work, but you need to raise this up in supervision. Or the second thing is that you might be having a bigger caseload and it needs to be reflected. Not in the sense of obviously somebody saying that, oh, you're working too much and this is really bad for you, but the team needs to be aware that obviously there are these additional workload caseloads that you need to be working with, and maybe they need to have a conversation about it. So I would say in any of these two cases, bring it up with your manager, bring it up with your supervisor in your weekly or your monthly sort of supervision meeting, so that they are aware that you are ending up staying late. Because the easiest thing that might come out of it is you realize that you need support in some areas of work. Maybe your notes are taking longer, maybe you don't know how to work with a certain patient, so you're reading up more about it. But that means that you're then going to get the adequate support that you need in order to thrive and survive in the UK as a healthcare professional. Now, at this point of time, I just want to remind you, if any of you all are struggling with finding a job in the UK or are struggling in clearing your interviews, I would just say that feel free to book a one-to-one session with me, because we can go through all of that and discuss all of your queries, concerns, and I can give you some really good tips and guidance on how you can possibly improve yourselves so that you start landing those interviews, clearing those interviews, and possibly getting a job in the UK. The next step that actually ties in quite nicely with the previous step is knowing how to raise concerns in the UK. Now, obviously, as an internationally trained medical professional, you are new into the system. You do not want to do anything that's going to upset your supervisors, your seniors, your colleagues. But if there's something going on, say, for example, like I said in the previous step, you are working longer hours, and that's absolutely fine. You just need to raise this up in a very calm, assertive way. You do not need to be confrontational, you do not need to be aggressive. Just lay down the facts objectively and state what has happened. Now, this can also come up in situations which are slightly more challenging, where you feel something is not going right either amongst your colleagues or within the team. Even in that case, I would recommend that you actually speak objectively about what has happened and raise this up either with your supervisor or in a confidential space with your manager. Because trust me, they just want to be aware about what really is happening within the team with you, just so that you are not overburdened, you are not stressed, and you don't burn out at the end of the day. So trust me, know how to raise your concerns, and if you are unsure about it, I would say bring it up in a supervision meeting with your supervisor or your manager. The next tip, that is tip number 4, that I think is very, very important, is whenever you are starting out in any new job, doesn't need to be your first NHS job, can even be your fifth NHS job, is ask for a shadowing period. Trust me, when you come into a new workplace, in a new environment, in a new trust, there are going to be different rules, different regulations. There are going to be different pathways that exist for each of the patient populations, and you want to be aware about it. But you also would like to know what is the working style of your colleagues and how you can possibly adapt or even make your skills better while you are observing them. So I would say definitely take this time out to ask them for a shadowing period, because trust me, they don't expect you to be knowledgeable masters of everything in the world. They expect you to come in with certain skills, but also grow in their trust, grow in their organization. So take this time out to ask them if you can shadow their sessions, observe some clinics, attend some consultation sessions with the consultants. See if any of that interests you. See if you want to learn more about something or shadow something even more to build your knowledge base. Trust me, they will not shy away from giving you these opportunities if you ask. But if you don't, you actually put yourself in a slightly disturbed position, because they would like to know what you want to be interested in or what you would like to know more of, but you are not clearly communicating that. And obviously, as an internationally trained healthcare professional, we don't want to show that we don't have knowledge, but trust me, that will be the worst thing you do for yourself when you join a new role. So my recommendation is ask for a shadowing period, guys. Don't shy away from it. Now, the next point that I want to share with you is another really important tip which I've received endless questions about, is trade unions. So now, for example, I'm a physiotherapist. I am registered with the Chartered Society of Physiotherapists, or the CSP. Now, many people say, oh, but you already sort of have your HCPC registration. Why are you registering with your CSP? Let me make this very clear. The CSP is like a trade union, but the second most important thing about it is that so let me make this very clear on the record. The CSP stands as a trade union for all physiotherapists. So for example, recently when the physios went on strike asking for higher pay, it was done via the CSP. So now when obviously we were given a better pay offer, it went back to the CSP, and the CSP has now decided to vote for it. Now obviously there are many people or many organizations like that. For example, there's the Royal College of Nursing, which is obviously the trade union for nurses. But there are sort of for occupational therapists and other healthcare professionals which you need to look into. But the second reason I ask you to sort of register with a local body or a union is because they offer you something known as an indemnity cover. Now, obviously, I know that in a lot of countries where we come from, say for example, India or maybe Pakistan, Bangladesh, there isn't a lot of legislation and rules involved with what happens if something goes wrong or if something goes bad in a particular scenario against a healthcare professional. But in the UK, the clinical situations are slightly different. So, say for example, there is a case where something has gone wrong, the hospital or the clinic will sort of try to cover themselves. But what is to say that you've ensured that you are well protected? This is the place where your union or your indemnity cover steps in. Now, because I have registered myself with the CSP, if any sort of situation arises where somebody raises a finger at me or questions my practice, I will be allowed to have a representative from the CSP come and guide me on how I can tackle the situation or what is it that I should be saying. They are the sort of people that provide the indemnity covers, and I would recommend that even before you start working in the NHS, have an indemnity cover. It's very important, guys, and I can't emphasize on how crucial it can be, because you want to have this cover even before you start working. Because once you start working, and if there is a case, god forbid, against you, or if there's something wrong that goes happens, you do not want to be in a situation where you are then trying to find a cover, because that wouldn't cover the incident that has already occurred previously. Now, I understand that these can be quite expensive. For example, the CSP itself, I think, costs about 300 to 400 pounds a year, which is quite a huge sum of money for many of us, which I appreciate. But try to find maybe annual discounts, or maybe discounts that keep coming up, or maybe try to see even if there's some sort of tax rebate on this to help you cover these costs, because these are really crucial, these are really important, and I can't emphasize enough on how it can be impactful for your career or for your practice as a healthcare professional in the UK. The next really important fact that I really want to shed light on, which I didn't know a lot about when I started working in the NHS, is CPD courses. Now, obviously, for many of y'all out there, when y'all come into a new place, you're so worked up in understanding what is the pathways, what is the logistics, how do you go about working in a new place, that you really forget about your continuous professional development. But let me remind you, for every cycle of HCPC, about 10% of professionals are called upon to provide their CPD portfolios. You want to make sure that your CPD portfolio includes a good blend of courses that you've attended, but also things that you've done in the past that have helped you to sort of grow over the past year or the past 2 years. Now, one way to do that is obviously through CPD courses. Remember, you are a part of the NHS now. You are a part of a good trust that supports your learning if it's laid down in your objectives for yourself on what you want to grow with your supervisors' conversations with you. So remember that there are going to be opportunities for you to apply for external courses, courses within your trust, internal courses, which will help you to grow in your knowledge and understanding of what you would like to do and how you would like to achieve some of these things. So remember, have open conversations about them. Remember that you are allowed to have these courses, unlike me, who did not even ask for them in the start. So please be mindful about this and keep this in mind when you start working in the NHS or privately. And my last tip for you is, don't take your work problems back home. Because trust me, I have been in a difficult situation. When I started working, I had some queries, I had some concerns which were really troubling me. And I would take them back home with me. I would not eat, I would not sleep, I would try and rush to work the next day, and none of that helped. So I can understand that obviously when you come into the NHS or in a private practice, you're really new, you're struggling, you might take some of these sort of challenges back home with you, but it's not worth it, guys. It really isn't. So I would say, as soon as you clock out, as soon as you know it's time to go home, leave all of the stress, leave all of the worries back at your workplace and head home, and not stress about it. Do not worry about it. Because when you come back to work, obviously it's still going to be there, it's not going away. But it's not worth you having to take the mental stress, affecting your mental health, affecting your physical health. You might possibly have anxiety, palpitations, diarrhea just by thinking about these problems. So please don't stress, don't worry. Seek support, seek additional advice if you need to, but do not be wildly upset or do not take it back home with you. And that's it. That was some of the key tips that I wanted to share with you. Let me know if you found this useful. And if you did, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe, guys. Take care. Bye.